Your body is not betraying you. It is obeying. Let that sit for a second, because I know what you came here looking for. You came looking for someone to explain the shaking, the heat that rises through your chest at 3 in the morning for no reason at all, the pressure at the top of your head that no doctor could name, the way your hands go warm when you pray and cold when you walk into certain rooms. You came looking for a diagnosis. And instead, I'm going to take something away from you. I'm going to take away the lie that something is wrong with you. They gave it a number. 40 cycles. A frequency. A measurement. A word borrowed from a laboratory. A number means somebody somewhere has a chart with your symptoms on it. But the number is not the revelation. The number is the world catching up, 4,000 years late, to something a prophet already wrote down while sitting under a tree in the wilderness, wanting to die. That's where we're going today. Not to a laboratory. To a cave. My name is George, and I've been walking with people through this exact season for a long time now. Not from a stage, from kitchen tables, from hallways outside hospital rooms, from the parking lot of a church on a Tuesday night when everyone else has already gone home, and there's one car left with the engine off, and someone inside it who can't make themselves drive away yet. That's where I've learned most of what I know. And I've watched this same thing happen to person after person, and almost every single one of them said the same sentence to me first: I think I'm losing my mind. No. You're being refined. Now let me get right to the lie, because that's what today is about. I'm going to take it apart piece by piece, and I want you to stay with me even when it gets uncomfortable, because the discomfort is part of it. The lie goes like this: if God were really with me, this would feel better than it does. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else you believe about your situation is built on top of that one sentence. You believe that peace means comfort. You believe that anointing means ease. You believe that when God moves closest to you, the temperature should go down. The temperature goes up. Gold doesn't come out of the ground shining. It comes out of the ground looking like dirt with promise in it. And the only thing that separates what's valuable from what's worthless is heat that would destroy anything less than gold. The fire isn't the enemy of the gold. The fire is the only friend the gold has ever had. Everything the fire takes was never gold to begin with. You've been standing in that fire for months now, maybe years, and calling it a breakdown. It's not a breakdown. It's a burn-off. Let me take you to Elijah, because I promised you a cave and I keep my promises. Here's a man who had just seen the biggest thing anyone in his generation would ever see. Fire falling on a mountain in front of hundreds of people. Rain returning to a land that had forgotten what rain sounded like. He outran a chariot. He stood in front of a king and didn't blink. If there was ever a man you'd expect to be untouchable, it was this one. And a few verses later, he's sitting under a bush, in the middle of nowhere, asking God to end his life. Read that again. Not before the victory. After. After the fire fell. After the whole nation watched. After the thing he'd prayed for finally happened. Do you know how many people have sat across from me and described exactly that? They finally got the breakthrough. The job came. The healing came. The prayer they'd been praying for 11 years got answered. And 2 weeks later, they're lying awake at 2 in the morning, with their heart pounding, feeling emptier than they felt during the waiting. And they think it means they were never really called. It means the opposite. It means the fire moved from outside them to inside them. Because that's what happens. As long as the fire is on the mountain, it's a spectacle. When the fire comes into your body, It's a refinement. And nobody enjoys being refined. Not one person in Scripture ever wrote down, "And the burning was pleasant." They wrote down, "I couldn't stop shaking." They wrote down, "My bones felt like they were on fire, and I couldn't hold it in." They wrote down, "I fell as though dead." Those are not the words of people having a bad week. Those are the words of people whose physical frame was being asked to carry something it was never designed to carry, and was being changed in order to carry it. So let's talk about your body. Because that's what you came for, and I'm not going to dodge it. You've noticed things. I know you have, and you've probably stopped telling people about them. Because of the way their faces changed the last time you tried. The waking up. Always around the same hour. Not startled awake, summoned awake. Eyes open in the dark. Completely alert. No dream you can remember. And a stillness in the room that feels like it has weight to it. And you lie there, and you don't know what to do with it, so you check your phone. And the moment breaks, and you fall back asleep annoyed with yourself. The heat. Starting low, in the stomach, and moving up. Sometimes during worship. Sometimes in a supermarket aisle at 11 at night, when you're picking up milk you forgot on the way home from work. It has nothing to do with where you are. It rises and it passes, and you stand there gripping the handle of a shopping cart, wondering what just happened to you. The exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. You slept 9 hours, and you woke up tired. Not lazy tired. Carried something heavy all night tired. The crowds. You used to be fine in them. Now 20 minutes in a full room drains you like you ran a mile. You come home and you can't talk to anyone, and the people who love you take it personally, and you don't have language to explain that it isn't them. The way you can walk into a house and know, before anyone says a word, you know what happened in that room an hour ago. You know which person is lying. You didn't ask for that. And the crying. The crying that comes from nowhere, driving, folding laundry. A song comes on that isn't even a sad song, and something breaks open in your chest, and you're pulling over onto the shoulder of the road with your hands over your face, and you couldn't explain to a single living soul what you're crying about. Here's what I want to say to you about all of it, and I want to say it slowly. None of that is malfunction. All of it is capacity being installed. But here's where the lie fights back. Because it always fights back at this exact point. It says, "Fine, George, maybe it's spiritual. But then why does it hurt? Why does it isolate me? Why has my life gotten harder since I said yes? Go back to the cave with me." God doesn't scold Elijah. That's the first thing I want you to see. And I want you to see it, because you've been scolding yourself for a year. God doesn't say, "Get up, you're an embarrassment. You just called fire out of heaven, and now you're crying under a bush." He sends food. He sends sleep. He lets him rest twice before a single word of correction. The first ministry to a burning-out prophet is a meal and a nap. That's it. That's the whole theology of that moment. If you've been waiting for God to be disappointed in your exhaustion, stop waiting. He's not coming with that. But then he calls him out to the mountain. And this is the part I need you to hear with your whole chest. There's a wind that tears the mountain apart. God isn't in it. There's an earthquake. God isn't in it. There's a fire. God isn't in it. And then there's a sound so small, you could miss it if you were breathing too loud. That's him. Do you understand what that means for you? Right now. In this season. Every loud thing in your life over the past year, every collapse, every argument, every door that slammed, every relationship that fell apart, every wind that tore up what you thought was permanent, you kept looking for God inside the noise. You kept saying, Why is he doing this to me? He wasn't in the noise. The noise was just clearing the room. He was in the small thing, the one you almost dismissed, the single sentence that came to you in the shower, the stranger's face you couldn't stop thinking about, the verse that landed differently on the fourth reading, the 4-second impulse to call someone that you talked yourself out of. That's why your body has been changing. It's not being tuned to hear thunder. Thunder doesn't need a tuned body. Anybody can hear thunder. It's being tuned to hear a whisper. That's the whole thing. That's what all of this is for. The sensitivity that's been ruining your ability to sit through a loud dinner party is the same sensitivity that lets you hear a voice that doesn't raise itself. You cannot have one without the other. You've been asking God to take away the very thing He spent 2 years installing. Now let me confront the second layer of the lie, because there's always a second layer, and it's meaner than the first. The second layer says, if this were really God, someone would have confirmed it by now. You've been waiting for a witness. Somebody to look at you and say, yes, I see it too. You're not crazy. And it hasn't come. Or it came from the wrong person. Or it came too quietly. Or it came and then that person disappeared from your life 6 months later. Elijah, in that cave, says something devastating. He says, I'm the only one left. He was wrong. There were 7,000. 7,000 who had never bent a knee to the wrong altar. 7,000 walking around in that same country, in that same season, carrying the same fire. And he didn't know a single one of their names, and they didn't know his. He wasn't alone. He was unintroduced. And so are you. Loneliness in this season is not evidence of abandonment. It's evidence of assignment. The people who are carrying what you're carrying are not being kept from you forever. They're being kept from you until you stop needing them to validate you, because a person who needs a witness will do anything to get one. They'll water it down. They'll explain it away. They'll go find a room where nobody asks hard questions, and they'll settle in there and grow comfortable and lose the edge that the fire gave them. God will not hand you your people while you're still shopping for permission. I want to tell you about a woman I know. I'll keep her name out of it. She works a night shift. Comes home around 6 in the morning, when the light is just starting to come up over the houses across the street. And she told me that for about 8 months there was a stretch every single morning, standing at her kitchen counter with a cup of coffee she wasn't going to finish, where she would just start weeping. Sun coming up, nothing wrong. Kids still asleep upstairs. And she'd stand there with her hands on the counter and cry until it stopped. She thought she was depressed. She went and got checked. Nothing. She came to me and she said, George, I'm scared of my own kitchen. And I asked her one question. I asked her what she was thinking about right before it started. Every time. She went quiet for a long minute. And then she said, my grandmother. Her grandmother, who used to pray for her out loud when she was a little girl. Who used to lay a hand on her head and say things over her that she couldn't understand at the time. Who died when she was 19. And who she hadn't thought about in years. Every morning, at the exact hour her grandmother used to pray, her body was doing something her mind had forgotten how to do. That's not depression. That's inheritance surfacing. Something was placed in that woman before she had words. It went dormant. And when the season came for it to be activated, her body remembered first. Because the body remembers things the mind files away. Her tears were not grief. Her tears were a prayer she'd been carrying since she was 6 years old, finally finding an exit. She prays now. Every morning at that hour. Same counter. Same view of the houses. She stopped fighting the burning and started letting it burn what needed to go. That's what the fire does when you stop running from it. it stops hurting and starts working. I want to stop here for a moment, because there are some of you who are having a physical reaction to this right now. Not a metaphorical one. Something in your chest. Something behind your eyes. That's not coincidence, and I'm not going to pretend it is. If that's you, hear me. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. I'm not going to spend 3 minutes selling that to you. If it's for you, you already know. If it isn't, stay with me anyway, because the rest of this is free, and the rest of this matters. Let's go back to the confrontation, because there's a third layer, and this one is the one almost nobody gets past. The third layer of the lie says, I've disqualified myself. This is the quiet one. This is the one you don't say out loud even in prayer. This is the one that sits underneath everything and poisons it, the belief that whatever God was doing in you, you already ruined it. With the thing you did, with the years you wasted, with the anger you still have, with the addiction nobody knows about, with the way you treated somebody who didn't deserve it. And so you look at the burning in your body and you think, this can't be anointing, because I know what I am. Let me say something about the fire that I don't think you've considered. Fire doesn't ask the gold for a ursum. The refiner doesn't sit down with the raw ore and interview it. He doesn't check whether it's had a good year. The ore is filthy. That's the entire reason it's going in the fire. If it were already pure, the fire would be pointless. You keep saying, I'm not clean enough for this. That's not a reason to stay out of the fire. That's a description of every single thing that has ever gone into one. And Elijah, the man, we keep coming back to this, is the man who, 3 verses after his greatest miracle, ran away from one angry woman. Ran, sprinted into the desert, and asked to die. The nation's great prophet, undone by and God's response to that was not to replace him. It was to feed him, rest him, speak to him quietly, and then hand him 3 more assignments and a successor. He got more after the collapse, not less. That's the part your fear can't hold. You think the collapse ended your usefulness. In the record we actually have, the collapse was the doorway to the deeper commission. The cave wasn't a punishment. The cave was where the noise finally got quiet enough for the whisper to be heard. So, what do you do with your body in this season? Let me get practical, because I know some of you need something to actually do with your hands. First, stop asking God to remove the sensitivity. Ask Him to teach you to steward it. Those are 2 completely different prayers, and one of them He's not going to answer. Second, when the hour comes and you know your hour, don't reach for your phone. That hour is not insomnia. It's an appointment somebody scheduled without telling you. Sit up, feet on the floor. Say 1 sentence out loud. Lord, I'm here. You don't have to be eloquent at 4 in the morning. You have to be present. Third, pay attention to what drains you and stop apologizing for it. If a room empties you, leave the room. If a conversation costs you 3 days, have it less often. This isn't weakness, and it isn't arrogance. A man carrying something fragile walks differently than a man carrying nothing. And everyone who's ever carried something knows that. Fourth, when the heat rises, don't shut it down. Most of you shut it down. You feel it start and you immediately distract yourself, because the intensity scares you. Let it finish. Let it move all the way through. Nothing in the fire is trying to hurt you, it's trying to take something off you that you've been holding on to so long you mistook it for part of your own body. Fifth, and this is the one I care about most, write down the small things. The whisper doesn't repeat itself. It doesn't need to. It came once, quietly, and if you don't catch it, it moves on and you spend the next 6 months trying to remember what it was. Keep something by your bed. Anything. The back of a receipt. I think about a man I met in a repair shop off a state highway. Diesel on his hands, radio playing something he wasn't listening to. He'd been rebuilding the same transmission for 2 days. And out of nowhere, he wiped his hands on a rag and said, without looking up, "Can I ask you something strange?" He told me he'd stopped being able to lie. Not that he'd become a better man, he was specific about that. He said he still had a temper, and he still had regrets. But somewhere over the previous year, the small lies had become physically impossible. The ones everybody tells. Yeah, I got it done. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, that's the best I can do on the price. He said the words would form in his mouth, and then something would clamp down in his chest, and he'd hear himself telling the truth instead. And it had cost him money twice. And one friendship. He asked me if something was wrong with his nerves. I told him what I'll tell you. When the fire has been working on you long enough, it doesn't just take what's ugly. It takes what's convenient. Every shortcut you were comfortable with, every small dishonesty you had a good reason for. And it doesn't take them by conviction, you don't sit down and decide. It takes them by making them intolerable. Your body starts refusing what your character has outgrown. He stood there a long time. Then he said, "So it's not going to give those back?" "No, it isn't. The fire doesn't return what it takes. It only leaves what's real." He went back to the transmission. But he bent over it differently. Lighter, like a man who'd just been told the weight he was carrying had a name. Now I want to say something to the ones who are further along than you think. Some of you watching this have already stopped shaking. The heat doesn't come the way it used to. The dreams have gotten quieter. And you've decided that means it left you, that the season passed, and you missed it, and now you're back to being ordinary. Listen to me carefully. The fire doesn't burn forever on the same piece of gold. At some point the impurity is gone, and the flame gets turned down. And what you're left with is something that just is what it is now. Purified doesn't feel like anything. That's the strange part nobody warns you about. When the refining ends, it doesn't end in fireworks. It ends in quiet. You're not empty. You're finished with that stage. And Elijah, when he finally came out of that cave, there's no record of him shaking anymore. He walked out and went and found a man plowing a field and threw his cloak over his shoulders and kept walking. No trembling, no fire falling, just a man doing the next thing, carrying what he'd been given, passing it forward. That's what the other side of this looks like. Not spectacular, steady. The people I trust most in this world are not the ones burning brightest. They're the ones who've already been through it and came out with their hands steady and their voice low. They don't need a mountain anymore. They've heard the whisper. Here's what I need you to understand before you close this video. And then I'm going to ask you one thing. Everything happening in your body is a translation. Something is being said to you in a language your mind doesn't speak yet. And your body is the first thing that's able to receive it. The heat, the waking, the tears at the wrong moment, the sudden knowing. The exhaustion in crowded rooms, that's not chaos. That's a message arriving in the only form you're currently able to receive. And when the world puts a number on it, a frequency, a measurement, a chart, that's fine. Let them. They're describing the smoke. We're talking about the fire. The smoke is measurable. The fire is personal. The smoke is what a machine can see from the outside. The fire is what's happening to you, in the dark, at 4 in the morning, when nobody's watching, and there's no instrument in the room, and it's just you, and a heat rising in your chest, and a voice so quiet, you have to stop breathing to catch it. You've been calling that a symptom. It's a summons. So here's what I'm asking you. Don't tell me you feel it. I already know you feel it. You wouldn't have made it this far otherwise. Tell me something more specific than that. Tell me the hour, the exact one, the time your eyes open in the dark, or the time the heat comes, or the moment in your day when the tears show up without permission. Put the number in the comments: 3:15, 4:40, 6 in the morning at the kitchen counter, whatever yours is. And then tell me one thing about that hour. Who you were thinking about. What room you were in. What the last thing was you saw before it started. I read them. And I'm telling you now, you're going to scroll through those comments and find your hour sitting there in somebody else's words, written by a stranger 3 states away, who has never met you, and is standing in the exact same fire at the exact same minute. 7,000. And not one of them knew the others were there. You were never the only one left. You were only unintroduced. And the fire that's been keeping you awake is the same fire burning in a kitchen you'll never see, at a counter you'll never stand at, in a house where somebody just put down their coffee and started crying at sunrise for reasons they can't explain either. Go find your hour in that comment section. And then go get some sleep. You've been carrying this alone long enough.